Tonight on Top Story, looming governance crisis as several government ministries are left without political heads after Parliament's decision not to approve President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees over anti-LGBTQ plus bill row.
The House is unable to continue to consider the nominations of His Excellency the President to use the language of the Attorney General in the spirit of upholding the rule of law.
That we actually want to call back Parliament, but it is part of the options that we can be able to do.
We have details plus the standoff between the executive and the legislature as the Attorney General writes to the Speaker of Parliament declaring he had no basis to have suspended the approval of President Akufo-Addo's ministerial nominees.
The Speaker's decision was, with all respect, regrettable. Perhaps it was misled by, I don't know, some people, maybe the plaintiff himself in the matter. So that decision he made did not have any genuine or factual basis.
And I find it very offensive. He's the leader of the bar. He's the Attorney General of the Minister of Justice. He should stop this radio legal argument.
That coming up on Top Story tonight here on Joy 99.7 FM, made possible by Telecel. Telecel is definitely here. Do stay. Let's dig in now, and tonight several government ministries have been left without political leadership in what could cripple their effective management. Well, this follows the decision of Parliament not to approve 24 ministers and deputy minister designates following the anti-LGBTQ bill row. Well, the President's decision not to accept the bill passed by the Parliament because of injunction applications is the basis for Parliament's reciprocal move. Well, there are issues now arising from this injunction application we'll be delving into shortly. But ministers and deputies are the political heads of the various ministries and are in charge of political and policy directions and decisions. We'll shortly interrogate also the impact of this on the running of their ministries. And my colleague, Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante, joins us in the studio. They went on a dramatic break yesterday and he's with me in the studios. But Kweku, there are a lot of things I would want us to unpack tonight on Top Story. But first, let's go through the ministries that are worst affected by this particular political stalemate.
So, let's start from the Ministry of Tourism. They do not currently have a substantive minister. If you look at the crucial minister for sanitation and water resources, we know that President Akufo-Addo has promised to make Accra the cleanest city in Africa. The sanitation ministry is overseeing that. They do not have a substantive minister now. The gender ministry, for some time, they struggled to have a minister when Adwoa Safo traveled for a long time. They currently do not have a minister because the nominee have not been approved. And perhaps the worst affected is the two ministries, health and information. If you look at health, Kojo Nkrumah, substantive minister, has been reassigned to the Works and Housing Ministry. The deputy, Fatima Abubakar, was relieved of her portfolio as deputy and promoted to be the minister substantive. That has also not happened because she has also not been approved. So the ministry is right now without technically a minister and a deputy. Look at the health ministry as well. Kweku Addo was sacked by President Akufo-Addo. The president nominated Dr. Bernard Okoboy. Bernard Okoboy has also not been approved. The two deputy ministers of health were all sacked and new persons nominated. They have also not been approved. We do not have a minister for Greater Accra region, DOT region. So these are all ministries, very critical ministries that do not currently have substantive ministers. We understand the president has appointed some substantive ministers to be overseeing the activities for now. For instance, we know that when you go to the gender ministry, Hakum Sin is overseeing their activities for now. And then when you go to health ministry, that is the ministry of Eslo Usu, the communication minister, overseeing them. But these are ministers themselves who have significant workloads at their ministry. Communications minister right now grappling with internet blackout and having to supervise an important ministry like health. So these ministries need their substantive ministers and they are nowhere to be found. The Parliament of Ghana has vetted all of them. What is left is for the House to approve them, but the Speaker of Parliament has arrested that.
And this particular arrest is what is generating all that controversy, and the basis upon which that arrest was made by the Speaker of Parliament is also becoming a key concern. We've been hearing from Godfrey Yeboah-Dame on this, and on Midday News, he mentioned that he had conducted a search. Well, he's true to his promise. He made available a copy of that particular search. We know that he's also written to the Speaker of Parliament on that decision that he's taking. He insists that the Speaker was misled into taking that particular decision of arresting, the approval of this 24 ministers and the deputy minister designate. We'll get into that because you have a copy of that particular search. We also are learning about this particular injunction writ that was filed today, this morning at 10 a.m. on behalf of Roxanne Nelson Dafamekpo. We'll get into it. But first, let's listen to the Speaker before adjourning Parliament indefinitely, announcing that he has been served with an application for injunction on the ministerial nominees. Hence, the House cannot go ahead to approve the persons appointed by the President.
The House is unable to continue to consider the nominations of His Excellency the President, to use the language of the Attorney General and Minister for Justice, quote, in the spirit of upholding the rule of law, unquote, until after the determination of the application for interlocutory injunction by the Supreme Court. Honorable members, this is the precedent that is being set by His Excellency the President for all Ghanaians to follow. So any matter that comes before Parliament, any Ghanaian can issue a writ and follow it with an application for injunction, and that is enough to injunct Parliament from proceeding with the consideration of the business in the House.
Well, so that's the Speaker yesterday before they went on break. Now, the Attorney General, Godfrey Yeboah-Dame, says he's conducted a search today at the Supreme Court's registry, and it shows that no injunction has been filed as purported by the Speaker. Listen.
I think that was a decision that was premised on false basis. Because indeed it is true that a writ had been filed and served on me the day before. But it is certainly untrue and inaccurate for a contention to be made that the motion for injunction has been filed in the Dafemekpo case. And I read the statement that was read by the Right Honourable Speaker in Parliament yesterday. And he firmly premised his conclusion on the pendency of a motion for interlocutory injunction that has been filed by Mr. Dafemekpo. And that is false. Because indeed, as far as I'm concerned, the only process that has been filed in that action is a bare writ of summons. It is not even accompanied by a statement of claim or case. Neither has there been filed an application for interlocutory injunction. So it's just a writ of someone that has been filed without more. And clearly, there was no basis. It is correct that in his writ of summons, he actually stated as one of the reliefs an order of interlocutory injunction. But that is inconsequential. It is not an application or a motion for interlocutory injunction. It has no effect whatsoever. It is not binding on anybody. I have formally conducted a search in the registry of the Supreme Court this morning. And I have the results of the search. And the results are quite clear.
What's the result of the search?
It's very important because you're asking whether... No, you're asking. The question was whether or what I make of the Speaker decision.
But once you've introduced the search, if you could just tell us what the search results was. Just tell us that.
The search results was one. Yes, so I asked 3 questions from the Supreme Court registry. The first question was whether or not a certificate of case in support of the plaintiff's writ has to date been filed in accordance with Supreme Court rules. And the answer was only the writ has been filed. Second question was whether or not an application for interlocutory injunction has been filed by the plaintiff hearing, and if so, when was it filed? The answer was a categorical no. The third question, whether or not the application for interlocutory injunction has been served on any of the parties to this suit, and if so, when, was also a categorical no. Indeed, the application for interlocutory injunction has not been filed, it cannot be served. So that's what I make of the decision. That really the speaker's decision was, with all respect, regrettable. Perhaps it was misled by, I don't know, some people, maybe the plaintiff himself in the matter. So that decision he made did not have any genuine or factual basis. And indeed, this morning I have actually delivered an opinion, a letter to the Speaker of Parliament in good faith, drawing his attention to the inaccuracies in the statement that he made yesterday in Parliament, as well as the results of the search that I have conducted in the rest of the court.
Okay.
That showed clearly that indeed at the time he was making the statement, there was no application for interim or interlocutory injunction that had been filed.
But you haven't
and
responded.
And I'm also praying that the Parliament then reconsiders its decision and proceeds to.
So that's the Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Godfred Yeboah-Damilare, speaking earlier on the Midday News. But Roxanne Nelson Dapamakbo, in whose name the action stands, has been firing back.
The injunction application was submitted to the registry of the court yesterday and filed. So if the Attorney General claims that he's conducted a search, I'll be willing to see the content of that search.
So you've answered one leg that is filed. Has it been served at least?
I am not a bailiff of the court. I don't serve process. It's the court that serves.
Okay.
So So it's the court that will establish that the process has been served or not. It's not parties who serve, and the AG knows. So.
Okay. And he says that his search reviewed that at least it may not have been served and that the speaker may have been ill-advised for him to take that decision.
Hold on. What baffles me is that the Attorney General is a party in this matter. Then he comes on radio and makes very spurious comments. And I find it very offensive. He's the leader of the bar. He's the Attorney General and Minister of Justice of the Republic of Ghana. He should stop this radio legal argument.
That's Roxanne Nelson Dapamakbo there. Well, Kweku is still with me in the studios, and we've been talking about that result of that search conducted by the Attorney General. And shortly, we'll be bringing in lawyer Nick Akufo-Addo, represents Roxanne Nelson Dapamakbo. You heard Roxanne Nelson Dapamakbo earlier on midday that indeed it being filed, but we're seeing that rate actually being filed today at 10 a.m. to 21st of March. We'll be interrogating that. But Kweku, let's take a look at the search results. What exactly does it say?
So,
it talks about some 3 key questions.
Yes, so 3 questions: whether or not a statement of case in support of the plaintiff's writ has to date been filed in accordance with the Supreme Court rules. Then the registry responds, only the writ has been filed. The second question the AG asks, whether or not an application for interlocutory injunction has been filed by the plaintiff hearing, and if so, when was it filed? Registry says no. Whether or not the application for interlocutory injunction has been served on any of the parties in this suit, and if so, when? Again, the registry responds no. This search was conducted at the Supreme Court at 9:05 a.m. by Godfred Yeboah-Damilare, the Attorney General.
And this is the basis upon which the Attorney General says the Speaker was ill-informed, he says, into taking that particular decision. He has since written to the Speaker on this, but we'll get to that letter that he's written to the Speaker. But then we've been looking at that particular injunction that we've been talking about, that injunction application that was filed by Roxanne Nelson Dapamakbo. We're learning that it was filed today. Yes,
if you look at the plaintiff's statement of case and the filing that has been done, that was all done 10:15 a.m. this morning. That is the sign embossed on these documents that we have been able to secure copies of. That Roxanne Nelson Echekwame, the firm, in this case, an injunction application was actually filed 21st this morning at 10:15 a.m. In fact, if you look at the documents, they start from 10 a.m. Some of the documents are embossed 10:20 a.m. and 10:15 a.m. So all of them filed within 10 to 10:20 a.m. this morning. MFA.
Kweku, stay with me. We'll go to lawyer Nick Akufo-Addo shortly. Lawyer Nick Akufo-Addo, thank you so much for joining us here on Top Story. So let's find out straight into it. Was there an injunction application filed yesterday as at the time the Speaker was arresting this particular ministerial nominees?
I didn't hear your question.
I'm asking if there was an injunction application filed as at yesterday when the Speaker was making those comments in Parliament.
Okay, so let me put this into context. The Speaker was served with a writ by
relief. In fact, the writ was filed on the 18th, and the Speaker was served on the 19th. Now, the writ, if you go to the lower court, that is the High Court, the High Court, you have a writ, a statement of claim. You come to the Supreme Court where we are now, you have a writ and you have a statement of case. Now, in the High Court, you file the writ and the statement of claim together. But in the Supreme Court, you file your writ, and then the rules allow you to file, instead of a statement of, they call it a statement of case, within 14 days. So if you look at the AG's advice, it tells that you are entitled to file it within 14 days. Okay. So on the writ that was filed on the 18th, there was an injunctive relief. That injunctive relief was for states that there is an interlocutory injunction, the plaintiff will be seeking an interlocutory injunction, blah, 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 and also a perpetual injunction. Now, clearly, at the time, and remember the Speaker is a party, he's the first defendant. After the time yesterday that the Speaker was speaking in Parliament, he had been served with the writ, with the injunctive relief. So, flowing from that, you clearly could see that being a party to the suit, the Speaker, and the Speaker is a lawyer of many, many years standing at the bar. He decided that based on the receipt of the writ that he had been served with, he was going to stay his hand. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. In fact, if you read his address, he stated that there are two schools of thought about when you are served with the process and when you are served with the process with an injunction. And he gave the legal opinions that go both ways. Some say that if you are just served with the process, that is enough notice. Then those who say you have to also file with an injunction application on top of it for it to then be said that you are on notice about the injunction, you should not act. Now, if the Speaker, being a party to the suit in the Supreme Court, decided that based upon his receipt of a writ a writ that had an injunctive relief on it, he was restraining himself from and conducting himself in a manner that will be potentially infringing on the relief that the person was going to seek and potentially could put him in a contempt situation. What is wrong with that?
Well, Niva Kosamwado, let me just read portions, that particular portion that you're just quoting of the Speaker.
Yes.
It says that's point 61. Be that as it
Yes.
may, honorable members, I also bring to your attention the receipt of a process from the courts titled Roxanne Nelson Echeke Dafamako versus the Speaker of Parliament and the Attorney General, goes on to cite the suit number amongst others, which process was served on me on the 19th of March 2024.
Correct.
And then goes on to say, here's the point, and an injunction motion on notice seeking to restrain the Speaker from proceeding with the vetting and approval of the names of the persons submitted by His Excellency. Was there an injunction motion at the time?
Nobody can speak to the Speaker's mind at the time.
We are speaking about the letter. What he says.
So hold on. The Speaker has received a notice. He has received a writ. You understand? The writ has an injunctive relief. If you read the AG's letter, it speaks to the issue of the injunctive relief. And so if the Speaker has made an interpretation of that particular process and says that based on the interpretation he makes, he has decided to restrain himself.
But so what you're saying, hold on.
Let me finish my point.
Paco, please hold on to. Let's do that clarification. Injunction motion. Are you saying that this was the interpretation of the Speaker and that's what we should take?
My point. Mm-hmm. If you don't let me finish my point, then you can have a conversation. Let me finish my point. If the Speaker has made a ruling and you disagree with the ruling, what do? You challenge it in court. That the Speaker made a ruling based upon what I consider to be an erroneous interpretation of a process that he has received. There is nothing preventing the Attorney General from suing the Speaker or from anybody else suing the Speaker and saying that, Mr. Speaker, you received a writ on this date. The writ had an injunctive relief on it. In our opinion, nothing stops you from proceeding, even though you have received the writ. That is how you challenge a speaker's ruling. A speaker has made a ruling. You don't agree with the ruling. What do? Challenge the speaker's ruling in court. But if you write an opinion to the speaker, well, that is his right. I don't know what the speaker will do with that opinion. And I wouldn't prefer to speak for the speaker because I don't speak for the speaker. But my ordinary reading and understanding of what it is that if you are a party to a suit and you have received notice of a writ that has been served on you, do you proceed to do the very thing that the writ is seeking to prevent you from doing? It is a risk you want to take.
Now, here,
what about if after doing that, if the speaker had gone on, Mr. Robson has cited him for contempt? What will you say to that one?
Okay, so let me put two things to you. So you're saying that the speaker had an erroneous interpretation of the writ that was before him, a lawyer of good standing. But that's beside the point. Let's also find out.
Wait. What did you say?
I'm saying that, are we saying that the speaker had an erroneous interpretation of this particular writ before him? You were mentioning that if somebody feels the speaker had an erroneous interpretation, they should go to court. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
That if somebody says that the speaker has misguided himself or has misinterpreted the process, he should go to court.
Okay. Well, I've been speaking to your client, Roxanne Nelson Dafamapo, this afternoon on the midday, after the Attorney General mentioned that his search revealed that there's no injunction application or that motion for that matter in the court upon his search this morning at the Supreme Court. And we are finding out that at least that motion has now been filed as at 10 a.m. today.
Let us correct this impression.
But he mentioned to me, if I may finish, if you can also hear me, Nikpapo, if you can also hear me.
Sorry.
So I spoke to Roxanne Nelson Dafamapo. And he mentions to me that that application was filed yesterday.
Well, if you have his voice and you played it that it was filed yesterday, that's a different because I don't have that.
Okay, you were not on the line, so maybe let me.
No, I wasn't on the line, so I cannot speak to something I haven't heard.
That's fine. Let me, Papa, you have to listen to me as well. Let me play that sound back to you.
The injunction application was submitted to the registry of the court yesterday and filed. So if the Attorney General claims that he's conducted a search, I'll be willing to see the content of that search.
So you've answered one leg that is filed. Has it been served at least?
I am not a bailiff of the court.
So you heard the Roxanne Nelson Dafamapo.
I can sure he is not speaking to the race because that was what was found on the issue.
He listened to the Attorney General and the specific question to him was whether the injunction application had been filed.
Well, that was an exchange between the two of them. So obviously I wouldn't know. I would have to ask him. But at least what I speak to is what I have on record. And the record is that the speaker was served on the 8th, on the 19th. The writ was filed on the 18th. So clearly the speaker could not have been speaking to something that he had not been served with. Logically, he couldn't speak to something that he had not been served with.
So, knowing what we know and everything that we've heard, do you admit that the speaker may have been misled and Parliament, for that matter, may have been misled into taking the decision they took yesterday?
How did he mislead himself? That's where I don't get. The man receives the process on the 19th. He says that based on what he has received, he is unable to proceed. And there's no rule that says that he must file an injunction on the very day. No rule says that. Even the agent in his letter says he has to file a statement of case within 14 days. And he has never had to file a statement of case and file his injunction application. Wherein lies the problem.
Okay, we are grateful. Neil Papo-Samuel-Addo there joining us. He's lawyer for Roxanne Nelson Dafamapo. We'll be crossing over shortly to the Joy News studio. We have the national dialogue on the free SHS promise happening shortly on Joy 99.7 FM on the Joy News channel and myjoyonline.com. That's it for Top Story. I am MFR Power. It's made possible by Telecel. Telecel is definitely here.